Today, today is part one of a series called Masterclass in Experience Management. And before I introduce our speakers today, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions as we're going along, please put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them, at least ones we can at the end of today's webinar. Anything we can't get to, we can contact you via email or phone, or also we may bump some of the questions into the next webinars because there'll be more than one here. And also we will be at LMA down in Hollywood, Florida this next week at booth 24. So please feel free to stop by and say hello. And if you have any questions at that time, happy to talk with you. And I think Chris put it in the chat, but we're also having a cabana party at the pool at LMA on Sunday. So if you happen to be down there on Sunday, please come by and join us. So to really get into it now, let me provide a little background on today's webinar and the series of webinars we're going to be doing here. At Clients First Consulting, we're marketing technology consultants, and that of course includes experience management. And we talk to a lot of firms about their priorities and their goals and what they want to accomplish. And one consistent topic that we have been hearing, particularly over the last year and a half, has been a need for an experience management database. And from our work and our conversations with clients, we know that marketing and BD teams understand what experience management is. But the question is, how do we successfully execute on experience management? And that's something that they don't seem to have quite as much understanding of how exactly to do it. So we started talking about, well, why don't we do an experience management webinar? And while doing this, we realized experience management could not be really fully covered in a single 1 hour webinar, not the way we wanted to do it. We could do a broad sweep of the topic, but we didn't want to just rehash high level obvious stuff. As we were hearing that what you wanted to see from our clients is, how do we do this? Let's drill down on this and really get to it. So that's why we decided to call this a masterclass, to provide you the detail, and it'll be a series of more than one here. Well, if you're going to talk about experience management, perhaps you should have people on your panel and on your webinar that are experienced in experience management. So let me introduce our speakers today. Many of you, perhaps all of you even, know Chris Fritsch, who founded Clients First Consulting and is recognized as one of the top marketing technology minds in our industry, and has consulted with many firms on their MarTech, and that includes experience management. Let me also introduce a colleague at Clients First, Clinton Gary. Now, I've known Clinton for 15 plus years, as he's been a director and a chief marketing officer at major law firms. And during this time, Clinton, of course, has done the websites and the CRM and other marketing technology initiatives. But Clinton has successfully deployed experience management at 3 major law firms, as well as a top accounting firm. And I don't know of anybody that's done more than that. And Clinton assures me that he has all the cuts and scars to show you that kind of real world experience. So with that, let me turn it over to Chris and Clinton.
Great. Thank you, Dave. So just a quick agenda, the things that we're going to be going through today. We're going to cover, again, we're doing a multi-session presentation, and at the end, we'll tell you about the additional sessions. But today we're going to do sort of a foundational session, what it is, why do we need it? I mean, obviously, if you all are all here on this session today, you probably know why you need it. And then we're going to also get into some real practical stuff. What's the strategy around it? What are some of the foundational principles, and how do we succeed? What are some of the best practices? And then we're actually going to share some real life case studies as well. So Clinton, let's jump into it.
Outstanding. Thank you. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Chris, and have the opportunity to do this, and welcome friends and family who have joined us. Let's get into the meat. First one on experience management, give a definition. There's a lot of them. Here's the one we like. It's harnessing and leveraging the firm's experience and professionals' capabilities for more effective and collaborative business development. I read that out to emphasize 2 things on there for you. One of them is the professionals' capabilities. What you'll see as a theme throughout the presentation is, I think we know what experience is from its fundamental standpoint of it's a story, it's a record, but there's a lot more that's being packed around the record to solve more strategic things within a firm. And that includes more around who is the person who created the experience, and to improve collaboration and trust within the firm. And we'll dive into that. And then, of course, some of the trends we are seeing, which is a lot of it's about business development today. So let's get to the next one and talk about the 4 big trends we're seeing right now on how experience management can be or should be strategic for you. First one, firms have gobbled up practices, people. They are now stretched from coast to coast across countries. We have laterals coming in on a daily basis. And some of those firms are also dealing with transitions out of attorneys. So at the end of the day, it's kind of tough to know who's here and who knows what at any particular time when we need to know who's here. So what is that causing? That's causing us to sell more in silos. If I don't know who's here in the firm, or the last attorney retreat we've had was 3 years ago, I'm just going to go to the tried and true people that I know. So I'm only selling what I know and who I know. And so we're selling in silos. We're not really delivering on why we brought in all the laterals and practices, deliver value on the clients. So what's happening is, from a strategy standpoint, is expenses are rising faster than revenue, and you're being pushed today to be able to drive that revenue. Second big trend, which is important, bringing in that people aspect. There's a whole nother generation of professionals right now that expect to be associated or have the opportunity to be associated with a greater amount of business development opportunities. That can be the new laterals, that can be younger, new partners, that can be our associates, which we know we are being pushed to different areas by our associates, and including the minority associates, diverse associates. So what's happening of the trend we're seeing in the absence of experience management, in the absence of that collective tissue of being able to know who's here, we've got those groups of people that are being underutilized and underappreciated. So we're getting that disengagement. I think you're feeling that from your associates who want to be considered for more than just what's happening in their office. Third big trend is a technology-oriented trend. Right now, there are more technologies that are available than before, and they're being purpose-built for experience management. Many of you may have already have them under your roof right now. And so a lot of those conversations are happening where that experience management is being bundled within a technology. You're using that bundle in one area, and now you're realizing, hey, whatever we have, and it's already purchased or it's already known by the firm, it's got to be better than the spreadsheets that we have right now. So a lot of talk is being driven by the technology purchases. And then this last one, which is the clients, the general counsels, they are asking for more from us. They are expecting more. They've gotten their house in order. They're technology and data driven. They expect us to be technology and data driven, and they're asking us for more detailed questions, coming in more detailed RFPs. Along with that, on that detailed information is, you've seen it. We've got people in our law firms that have titles of chief innovation, chief pricing, chief project management. All of these individuals are asking for more information from us to be able to do their jobs better. And they're getting frustrated because we don't have that detailed information. Here's a great example of Chris, you want to say something there?
Yeah, and an important thing about the technology aspect of this too, and why we care so much about it, is because, at Clients First, we really focus on the people and process and change management. We help firms select technology, but the technology is only good as the people and process. And, we do a lot with CRM, which is, things like who knows who, but this is like who knows what. And it's great that we have the technology, but it's really important to understand some of the best practices and some of the change management. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. Our next session is going to be more focused on the technology itself. But here we want to give you some real information and ideas for executing and for succeeding. Once you've got the technology, now what?
Exactly. And now, boy, let me give you an example of something that hits you right in the face on why this is important. And that's this slide. It is a recent request that has come across that we see more. And look at these fields of what this massive RFP is asking for. And these are the ones you want to win. These are multi-year, high profit projects. And these are the ones you want to win. But you got to be able to answer these questions. And look at the kicker on the top under the subtitle. Not only they want this for all litigation practices for 5 years by state, by district, and by circuit. This is now becoming a common request, especially from those larger clients in those regulated industries like financial services, insurance, and those things. So how do you answer this? That's why experienced management is moving to the strategic area. And you really got to think about how you lay down the foundation to be able to answer these questions. So here's big four reasons why you need experienced management. You saw the trends, you saw the pain. Here is some of the reasons. The influence. Let me punch a couple of these key words out that are in blue. You do experience management so that way when it's red, it's influencing that person to do what you want them to do. And we did buyer reader because experience now could be for, sure, a proposal. It could be for the rankings. Sure, it could be for external. It could all be for internal, the partner reading it. And so who are you influencing? Second one is empower. And that is, are you empowering each individual within the firm from a self-service perspective to be able to tap into the full capabilities of the firm, especially your relationship partners in charge of your big clients? Inclusion, we talked a little bit about that, which is those everyone expects, especially younger generation, including associates, they want the confidence to know they are being found and considered for business development opportunities greater than what is available to them just within traditional ways. And then the innovation. Are you raising it up a level and using the analysis of all of that experience to be able to be more innovative and efficient? It's more than just making your marketing and business development team efficient and getting past spreadsheets. It needs to line up with something bigger because of these bigger purposes. This is what you feel every day. This is what it looks like when you're not doing it. Those RFPs that slam everybody for 2 weeks and you wind up having to go door to door because it's all hands on deck. You don't know what experience you can use, so you stall out in what you send. Or maybe a press calls up and wants to know, what are you doing with AI? What are you doing with crypto? What are you doing with something that is brand new? You don't need to have 10 bullet points. You need to have 2, but where are you doing it? And you wind up losing out on those opportunities. From an internal perspective, your website should not be the place that your attorneys go to be able to find the experience and skill sets or find individuals within your firm. Same thing with laterals. Laterals being lost because they don't have a way to be able to plug into it, and laterals get frustrated, which is why you see 50% of the laterals failing to meet the expectations of the firm. And then the last one, which is the minority associates, minorities knowing they are important. They want to deliver additional value, but they need to be known by where they are across the firm. So those are the pain points we know you're feeling on a daily basis of how EM shows itself when it's not being deployed.
Yeah, and contrary to the attorney's popular belief, sometimes a firm-wide email to everybody asking about this is not the most efficient or effective way to gather experience.
Right. I think you feel all of these. This is a you understand these. We wanted to make sure it's clear to you. So let's talk about, the pain. Where do you stand? Where do you stand in saying, okay, I'm interested in this? Where are you? Where do you start from? This is not exact. There basically are 4 different personas, different places where firms are right now. Especially Chris sees more of this by being associated with so many more of you within it. The first one, sum it up in spreadsheet hell. You're still there. Somebody's plowing through Excel spreadsheets. The second one is standalone. You might have done something related to experience management in the past, but it may be stalled. You're probably on a custom technology. You might have done SharePoint or something like that, but you did something, you had to put it on the back burner because of the crisis or something became important, but it's sitting there and it's a black eye. How do you get it to be better? Under integrated,
Or you had
oh yeah, go ahead.
technology that is, was not cutting edge, was not quite there years ago. New technologies came out and they really just they weren't yet mature enough to meet the needs. Now there's some amazing technology out there that makes this a lot easier.
Under one of the case studies I'll show you a little bit later, there's this integrated sounds good. And that is, you did experience management, but you tied it to something else. You tied it to another big initiative. Most likely it was a website, or you said, man, I need a new proposal generation technology to make us more efficient. And you stacked on experience management on it. It wasn't a lead initiative, it was supporting initiative, but you bolted it on there. And more than likely, attorneys can access it, but they don't update it. You're still churning in the background in your department to maintain it. If anybody wants to update their proposals, their bios, you still come through the marketing department. So the BD team is being weighed down by that weight of maintaining it. And then you have the last one, which is, thank God there's some good firms out there. They've invested early. They really are thinking through it. They've got dedicated resources and they have something that's established, but they now know they have to take it to the next level. And they might consider those new technologies. They might consider leveraging their team better or collaborating across the different admin groups, especially your CIO, to be able to say, how can we do this better? If we had a polling technology, we would have sat back and said, hey, where do you stand in one of these? But right now, we think that most of you are probably in the first two. Chris, what do you normally see from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely, first some of the largest firms got focused on this, but not to generalize, because there are actually some smaller firms and some regional firms that have done a great job really focused on the technology. But just like with, the other marketing technology, we see folks that have gotten these systems and, maybe it's a standalone system. You have to think about, should we be integrating it with other systems? You really have to think about your marketing tech stack and how this is all going to work together. In addition to your strategy, how are you going to make it easier to pull data and to pull together information to minimize duplicative entry, to minimize the workload and the time required of the attorneys? I don't think a lot of people have gotten, to the institutional level where they've got the technology, they've got the people process, and they've got buy-in across the firm, and they're just making it work. I think no matter what, everybody can get better at this.
And what we'll show you later is, we know each of you want to move up those stairs, but you can't just say it's because my marketing team's really overloaded. You need to tie it to something strategic. Going back, you'll hear that theme. What is the thing you can hook on to get buy-in and momentum to move up those stairs? We'll talk about that in the coming slides. Experience management, what do we find? It's easy. We gave you a definition, but what does it look like? What am I trying to gather? Experience management sits right in the corner of where these three things converge: clients, professionals, and work. It is a story. It's not an all data-driven thing. Experience is a story that you're trying to capture to influence individuals. And where does that story come from? Convergence of all three of these things to tell you what was done, how was it done, who did it, and why did they do it. Now, some firms, based upon whatever their strategic driver is, looking at this picture, they may angle in collecting more of the story in one of those circles. But it's the center of it. We know that the 10 basic questions, the core of experience management sits where you have a little bit of all three of these things. Where does it sit within the big thing of knowledge? We know this term knowledge management. It's bigger than experience management. Where does experience management fit within your daily basis? Because we know you on this have a team that's trying to manage all the stuff that you need. So where does it fit? Experience is one of these blocks. It's the far left one. And before, it used to just be experience, the bullet point. And now what's being added, or what has been added in the last few years, is skills, breaking it down a little bit level than just the services you offer, but what's the skills? And what I would say to you is, going to a theme within this presentation, is we're moving now to understanding more about the person that is doing the experience. Why are we doing that? We're trying to accelerate trust within a large organization. So when a person reads the experience, how do we then have a faster process to know, like, and trust them? So we're trying to capture more about the person who delivered the experience, which is why we're moving more into the second block of what's the knowledge about the person. And that comes in the form of affiliations. What do they want to do and their availability? So that way you've been influenced, you read the experience record. Now, how do I take action? I want to know more about the person. So this is what we talk about experience management, spreading a little bit across the portfolio of knowledge you have to maintain. In later ones, we'll talk about the technology that manages each of these buckets of knowledge. Here's an important slide. So we talked about your managing experience, but not all experience is created equal. This is important to understand, that you start off with your firm, depending upon how large you are, you have all these matters. If all these matters, sometimes it gets up into the hundreds of thousands, but you got to get it down the funnel to get to your best stuff. You see, we use the phrases to kind of categorize it from all to valuable to representative, which is usually the most frequent phrase in a proposal, to then getting to featured, or what we used to use at Arthur Andersen 20 years ago, and I continue to use, is your best stuff. What's your best of stuff? Or as Dave likes to say, your greatest hits. How do you get down that funnel from 100,000 down to your 10 per each practice? And what we want to emphasize, I'll show you two red lines here. First one is, the reason why it's called experience management is you must manage. It's not an all data-driven process. You can get to data-driven above the red line, but it's a judgment process. It's a management process to get below the red line, be able to determine what is your representative, what is your featured, your best of stuff. It requires judgment. So you're really trying to get to that number below. And then I would also say that what is important to some is not what's featured for an individual, what's featured for a homepage may not be featured. So you've got to think in a broader term of what is featured, and then also understand that it may not be featured forever. Some experience can be, after 5 years, you may wind up cycling it out. So that's why it's management. Yeah, we'd love to think big AI and come in and change all of this, but it's not, because it does require you as the professionals, your team, to work with those individuals who deliver it, to be able to constantly ask the question, what is featured today based upon what we're trying to accomplish, and which ones do we cycle out? It's a self-selection process. How do you find it? What is featured? What are some of the characteristics? Here's some of the characteristics of those. I think I call the big four the ones up top: big and complex, or it's notable, big result. It's $1 billion transaction, or you did something for the first time. Third one is a brand name client. You may have done something for the largest technology company in the world, and it may have been this small. Well, that's important, because you did something for the largest technology firm in the world. It doesn't matter what you did, you're associated to that brand name client. So how do you find experience associated to brand name clients? And then you have an innovative approach. Where did you do something better, faster? Maybe a project that normally a merger and acquisition that would have taken 6 months, you did it in 2 months. You did something in an innovative to be able to make that happen. Those tend to be the big four of, if you ever had to ask an attorney, you were coaching them, you'd say, what fits those four? I tack on another two for you here as you look through all that experience and say, what's timely? What you may not have done it a lot. You're not always looking for lots of records. Maybe you're looking for 2 records of where you've done something that is very timely out in the market right now. This would be more aligned with, say, PR opportunities. And then the last one is aligned with the strategy or plan. Here's the kicker of the slide. What you want to look for as far as what's featured can change at the firm level, at the practice level, at the professional level, based upon what is their strategy and plan. If the firm has highlighted 3 industries that are the most important to future growth, you're going to look at those top bullet points and find experience that meet those top bullet points, but also meet those key industry niches. Or maybe your employment and labor, L&E practice says, all the things we do, the most important thing is to show that we're really good in California. So now there's one of your lenses. You're looking at a geographic lens, which is different from those that are up top. So there's where the judgment comes in. Why a BD professional is so important in this is the top 3 bullet points in this list can be analytical. You can look at a database and run a search based upon a specific characteristic and find the top 3. But you have to have judgment to find the bottom 3. So that's why you must always be engaged in looking across your database and have people who are dedicated, who are looking to be able to find these featured experiences. I think you get that. So and I've already talked about that one. So let's talk about these principles, these best practices. This is where we're going to dive deep, deal with, we're going to focus a little bit on these stories, and I want to punch some of these lines. So one of the things Chris loves to mention in her methodologies is, hey, look, don't reinvent the wheel. Look for best practices. Let me give you 10 of them we think are important. It's not all of them, but here are 10 key ones, and we'll give a little bit of color on each of those. First one, all professionals should contribute and maintain the experience, because what may not be important for an attorney may actually be important for the firm. So what may be an associate who doesn't realize has a particular piece of knowledge may not be important for the associate, but can be important for the firm. So all individuals, we believe, have something to contribute as it relates to their experience. They may not know it, which is why we want them to contribute.
And we know that that is sort of the nirvana, right? To get all the attorneys to participate. But in reality, just like with some other technology, firms do this different ways. You're not going to get everyone to participate initially. You'd be lucky to start with a pilot group, people who really care about this and will do it. Then think about supporting those individuals with support staff who can go in and help them. A lot of firms, they'll have the associates involved. And so, they'll use technology to push things through at a certain threshold, a certain dollar amount. And then it goes to the associates to actually go interview the attorneys and get the information and build the descriptions. So, if you can't get everybody right away, then, get them some support.
Quick ones down this line, which I really like. We already talked about not all experiences created equal. Number 3, it must be written in a way that is compelling to your target and consistent. Lesson learned on that one, which is, hey, if you get all these experience bullet points and you put them in a proposal and one of them's an entire paragraph long and another one's about 6 words, it looks silly on a proposal. So you really wind up having to manage the length of a record so it reads nicely on those. Little lesson learned. Number 4, got to be searchable. It's got to be extractable. Those living in spreadsheet hell understand this. Might be able to search on a keyword search, but you can't get it out. As easily as it searches, you have to be able to extract it so that it is usable, because most of the time a person searching for experience is under a deadline. Number 5.
And you want to be able to get it into a proposal that looks great for the client too, so it's impactful. That's
absolutely. And one of the things that attorneys don't want is to be sent a spreadsheet or a proposal with 300 records and told, here's what we have, you choose the 20, right? You want to be able to extract it in a way that makes it easy for the attorney to read, even before the outside person is reading it. Number 5, very important. You want to categorize all experience by both the internal taxonomies and the external taxonomies. We find clients, and this is still being done, where all experience is captured by the practice groups within the firm, but that's not the way your clients buy. Your clients buy the services that are on your website. So even though a partner may say, I'm looking for a partner in my practice, they search experience to find another individual. Person who's searching the website is looking for something specific in that listing of what we all know is about 100 listing of services. You have to capture your experience by both ways. Anything else on this page, Chris?
Yeah, and that's how you have to really think about things like taxonomy. So we've worked with lots of clients on industry categorizations, and you've got to understand, it's hard enough just getting the industries to match up throughout the firm. You've got one set of industries on the website, then you've got other industries at intake. You might have different ones in the CRM system. You have people using words and codes. And so it really is helpful to sit down in advance, especially if you're going to do things by industry or by specific skill, and you need to be able to search for it consistently. You'd be well served to take some time up front and get everybody speaking the same language, using the same wording and taxonomies, so that then you can get the information in consistently and get it out consistently.
And there'll be a lot of that on the second masterclass that we talked about. There's a whole deep dive on that one. The next 5 in going through this one. So what's important here is, and I think Chris does this great in her best practices at the end, which is there's a core amount of knowledge that you really need to get on each experience record. And anything you get past that core, you better have a good reason for it, because then it gets harder and you're more likely not to get your professionals to participate. The more that the information that you're capturing or you ask an attorney to give, it better be tied to a big strategic thing, so they understand they're not doing it to make marketing's life easy. They're doing it to achieve a strategic goal. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the case studies. But beware as you go, and because it's so easy to say, man, I'd love to get 60 fields. But really, there's 10, and somewhere in between is your magic number. Information shared internally should be more expansive than externally. What is in your experience management doesn't need to be exactly then what is on your website, because then you could tell every attorney to go out to the website. You really should have a larger profile of the experience and of the individual internally, and a portion of that internal view is then used externally, because you can facilitate smarter, better collaboration internally with that more expansive profile than just saying, I'm trying to update my website, I need 10 bullet points, and so that's the only information I need to share internally. You're missing a huge opportunity to facilitate a collaborative culture if you stop at only what's being used externally. 8, embedded in existing processes, and that is ensure that your marketing team and your business development, marketing team and your professionals understand that at certain points of the way you do work, whether it's at we won the work, or client feedback at the end, or it's the every 6 months we update our bios, so that's when we capture experience. Experience management should not be random. It should be predictable, which, like any habit or any process, improves the likelihood that somebody will participate in it. We could talk more about that. And then these big 2, really in Chris's wheelhouse: avoid complex technology stacks and let the strategy and the people process first be first, and then pick the technology second that works for you. Anything else on that, Chris?
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about technology in the next class, but you really do have to think about this. Think about how many different ways we're using experience. We've got attorney bios, we've got proposals, we've got, press, we've got directory listings. And you have to think about what is the right way, what is the right technology, how do we get it all integrated if it's possible at all. But we really need to start with a problem to solve and think about the people and process first. Go in and do an assessment of your needs if you haven't bought the technology before going out, and looking at the dogs and ponies and the bells and whistles. Really think about, what are we trying to do with this? What do we have now? So we make a catalog of it, and then go start doing demos.
That's fantastic. A perfect segue, because what we're trying to get you to see or to do is, 1, define the strategy, walk you through a conversation, which we can do from our experience, walk you through, do you have the strategy right, its position right, and then walk you through an assessment 30, 40, 50 questions that we have created based upon, and you've only seen a glimpse of this, based upon these 10 fundamental principles, which are baked into the questions that we would have you discuss and think through and answer. So then you could think about implementation. So how did we do that? Let's show you just the first part, the strategy side, in 2 case studies that I'd like to give you a little more color on from this standpoint. From a positioning standpoint, a strategy standpoint, there's buckets. You see them down the left-hand side. I'm going to show you those in these 2 case studies. And on the first one, we have folks that are on this webinar, friends and family that are here that were with me through this. And I'd like to recognize Emily Gallagher and Robin Mailman and Gayla Kirkland, who were with me in doing this in this first case study. Hopefully I do them all justice on this one, because you always have to have people that are there, key to getting this done. First case study. Here's the major points, and let me give you and then the lessons learned afterwards. Yes, we needed to improve the operational efficiency of the marketing department, and we knew we needed to, but what were some of the larger things we could hook on to make this bigger than marketing? Well, there were 3 of them at the time. One of them was the firm wanted to do a new rebrand based upon a new strategy of the firm. It wanted to position itself no longer as what it was considered, but to be an international firm. So they wanted to rebrand to show a more complex, sophisticated firm. So we could hook onto that. Experience was needed to be able to show we have done work outside of our footprint. We have done work in all of these different countries, in all of these different broader jurisdictions and upmarket work. That was part of the rebrand, the repositioning. Experience was key in doing that and exposing that out to the world so they could search and see that we've done more work than just being a regional firm. Second one, the firm had just made it into another level of the bigger rankings. And once that happens, you have those. Now, all of a sudden, they throw you those RFPs because they look down the AmLaw listing and says, we need to include this firm. So we started getting very sophisticated proposals, a lot more of them in the IP area because we were strong in the IP area. We were not ready to be able to respond to those larger, more complex RFPs. And then the third one, which I think y'all all appreciate, is as the firm was growing, managing partner basically said, hey, look, I could double the size of your marketing and business development team, and you will probably keep them busy the next day. And I could continue to provide it because you'll always keep them busy. How do I wind up keeping the same level of talent, the same size you have, and improve the service? And it really was, we have more attorneys than marketing and business development team. So how do we empower those attorneys through attorney self-service? So the experience was a linkage to 3 major strategic drivers within the firm. What was the valued experience that we need? We've already talked about it. You could get 60 different fields for every piece of experience. We said we had to have the core 10, then we had to have another 10 that were a deep dive on the litigation, in particular IP. So if we were going to ask for these additional fields, we now know it's related to IP attorneys, litigation attorneys, understanding that they're being asked to provide more detailed RFPs. So we linked the request to larger value. So who were our champions? The managing partner was a big champion because he wanted to reposition the firm, and he's the one that said, I don't want to grow your team, so make my attorneys do more. So managing partner was a big one, and the litigation chair who needed to make it more efficient on his people responding to those RFPs and have a higher win rate. So I had champions in place. What were constraints? What did we have to back into? Managing partner said, I want this website launched at this particular date. Okay, now we know we got to create a timeline or think of the things that we're going to ask for in an implementation plan that had to now be constrained based upon we had to hit a timeline. So we could only ask for so much. And then the last one was it had to integrate with an existing tech stack. We had a proposal management tool. We had to have a technology that linked to that proposal management tool. So understanding the strategy, constraints, Who are the people that we were going to empower for to manage, to collect, manage, and move our experience? We had to empower those partners and EAs. And a key requirement, quality. It had to be ready for external view. We had to ensure to every professional, since this wasn't an internal project, it was an external project that was going to be searchable by clients, potential clients, that there was no misspellings. It had to be right. It had to be categorized correctly. So we had to put in time in that, in thinking from the implementation, who had the skills, who had the time to view all of our information before it went public. So that was a requirement from a strategy perspective before you even got into the details, but that helped us frame then what an implementation could look like. Let me give you a second case study here. What we're trying to show here is, as I explain this one, not every firm is going to approach experience management the same, experience management project. So here's a great example of another firm takes almost a completely different approach. Here's a firm that when hired said, we want to double in size and we intend to do it on a major acquisition. How can we integrate that major acquisition where we don't lose 6 months to a year in understanding who they are and what they have to offer? We want to hit the key clients within 90 days on what is our new full capability. By wanting to play at a larger level, we had to influence the rankings. We weren't doing as well in rankings, so we had to be ready. So that way, when the acquisition happened, we were able to deliver the rankings in the next line of submissions, how good we now are, or how better we are based upon that. So we had a rankings poll. Then the last one was DEI. We had a major emphasis on diversity and inclusion. How do we get our associates included in a broader sense of opportunities? We had a very influential chair of the diversity committee, who I was then able to say, I can help you with that. We can help you by expanding our scope of experience management to be able to, when somebody searches, they're able to find associates better, not on just what they've done, but what they want to do to raise not only this experience, the success of an associate, but the fulfillment of an associate doing more work of what they believe they want to be doing. That goes to the valued experience. What do we have to capture? In this case, we didn't need more information on the experience record. We needed more information on the professional that's associated possibly with an experience or just the professional. So we had to capture skills and affiliations and aspirations. What do they want to do? What gets them to the next level of the competency model? So that way our associates are moving through. Who was my champion? The diversity chair. The diversity chair loved this, that we were able to create this collaboration system so associates could be found. And then the associates loved it and were willing to be the first people to contribute their experience in all of this information. What were our constraints? Well, we had a budget constraint given the size of the firm. So we had to think about how were we going to stretch the cost of a brand new experience management system across 2 years instead of 1. Who were going to be the movers of this one? All the professionals, empowering the professionals, because this is an internal system, which we started phrasing as an internal LinkedIn system. This was less about external. This was more about internal. And we wanted a human feel to this experience management, not a data feel, but a human feel to the technology, so people could be found and then considered for opportunities. So we started using the phrase, instead of experience management system, we started using the phrase, this is our internal LinkedIn system. We know you play with it externally all the time. We know you use LinkedIn every day. All we're doing is leveraging the same behaviors and the same similar look and feel technology internally, so you can find individuals as easy, seamlessly. You can see then how through that discussion, we were able to identify what our hooks were to now say, okay, how do we get buy-in, and how do we get budget, and how do we get participation based upon understanding what our strategies and strengths were. Now let me tell you the lessons learned, wrapping that into here to make sure we stay on time. Real quick check, bingo. So lessons learned here. What did we learn? Confidentiality was a big one. So if you're going to go externally, we didn't realize that up front that really everything had to be written confidentially. We needed the client name internally, but we couldn't show it externally. So we wind up having to take 2 steps back in the middle of that project and going back to all of our experience records and having to rewrite them so they were confidential. These are the lessons learned. And the complexity of a bio, technology we used wound up making it very difficult for our own internal marketing business development team to be able to update a bio, because experience was in a whole nother area. We've baked this into our assessment so we can make sure you don't have to learn from these. What did we learn from this other one? We had to bake in 2 months into our implementation plan because the services on the website had not been updated in over 3 years. So we didn't want to ask for experience, have people code them to the old services, because then we wouldn't have been able to remap them. So we didn't realize that. We had to bake that in, and that took a lot of time working with the practice group leaders. So and then because it was for rankings, we wrote our experience records based upon what would the rankings want them to look like. And that also satisfied the proposals. But we wound up baking it in so that when we captured our feature, we were ready to go, hit a button, and the rankings became a lot easier. These were lessons learned through these 2 case studies that I know the folks that I talked about had experienced it. And we can help you through that. So those are just 2 examples of case studies. And that's what we do here. The framework is about first going through the positioning of what's our strategy, what's our constraints. And then after that, we have 40 to 50 questions in each of these buckets, following some of the best practices from Chris of her doing it throughout all of these technology implementations of major knowledge initiatives that we can walk you through to make sure you don't have to take 2 steps back in an experience management project and it meets those strategies. So I'll hand this over to Chris now to land this plane.
Great. Thanks a lot. This is great. You have such a wealth of in-house knowledge and you have a lot of experience with experience. And, it really dovetails very nicely with our experience around the people and process and change management in technology. So, here's some of the key takeaways from today. It really is important now. We are seeing in all of our technology consultations, we're seeing experience front and center. And it is being driven by all the things we talked about today. It's about more than just proposals. You need to have a strategy. Of course, proposals, a lot of times, RFPs do drive it. But it also does, like all technology, you need a champion, you need buy-in, you need communication, you need training. There's a lot of things you can't forget about. And we're going to go into depth in the second masterclass on that. You need to focus on best practices. And most important, don't do it alone, right? Most firms are not lucky enough to have somebody that's done this 2 or 3 times before. Most firms, you're trying to buy technology, but you're not sure what to buy. You're trying to get buy-in. How are you going to do that? Pilot groups, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle to getting it right. So reach out to your legal marketing, friends and colleagues. Reach out to us. Don't do it alone. Don't reinvent the wheel, and don't try to boil the ocean. Focus on manageable projects, getting some wins, and then communicating the successes, and then get another project. So there's, again, just like with CRM, there's a lot of things you can do with experience management. We did 2 case studies. We're going to do 2 more in the next session. But it's all about figuring out all these different things you can do. And for each one, who are your constituents? Who are your champions? Who's your audience? What are the challenges and what are the real opportunities and the value when you succeed? And how do we communicate all of this? And we're happy to help a lot of people. We see, CRM's been around a long time. And a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a technology that's reinventing itself and going to new places, but people sort of understand the fundamentals of how do we do a CRM. With experience, it's a newer technology, and we're having a lot of folks that have bought it or are in the process of buying it. We're helping firms do the selection process, and we're happy to help with that. But we want clients to succeed with it. So what we're doing, like we do for all technology, is, a needs assessment. It starts with our core service, which is a workshop to really kind of figure out what are your needs, what are your challenges and opportunities, how do you build the case for experience, or if you've already bought the technology, how do we now go get ROI on this? How do we actually go and get some wins? And how do we be successful with this technology and then take it to the next level? As part of that, we can do in-person presentations, surveys of the firm, the key stakeholders, the leaders, and it all helps get them on board. And when they bring us on, we're sharing information, ideas, and best practices gathered from working together with literally hundreds of top firms, for more than 15 years. And so again, we're happy to talk to anybody about that anytime. And in our next sessions, the next one, we're going to talk more about the technology, the selection, understanding needs and requirements. Who are the top providers you should be talking with? Should it be on a single platform? Should it be on multiple platforms? And should it be integrated? There's a lot that goes into that. How do we get the right system and implement it in such a way that we actually get the value in the ROI? And back in the day, about 6-7 years ago, there were a lot of experience systems that just didn't get the job done. They had a lot of bells and whistles, lots of dogs and ponies. They look great, and they're no longer in use. So it's really important to make sure you get the right tool for your needs and for your firm. And with all our presentations, we really want to always make sure that we give really good, we used to call them gifts or value. We're going to be providing, in the deck, some questions. If you're doing this internally yourself, here's some of the questions that we ask when we're on site or when we're doing one of these projects. There are over 100 questions that we ask. But hey, we figured, it would be helpful for you just to have a few just to get started. And we're happy to share those with you, in the hope that they can help you be more successful with experience management. We're going to jump into a QA now, but I also want to go to the QR. Go to the next slide, Clinton. Here's our code. So if you're not familiar, point your camera at these little QR codes and you can immediately connect with both Clinton and myself on LinkedIn. And I always love this because put this in your attorney's decks too when they're doing presentations. They will love this. They probably won't have seen this. As marketers, we've all seen it, but I think it's a great way to connect with us. And do connect with us. Reach out anytime. Clinton or I will always take a call. Always happy to help connect you with providers to share best practices. And I think we've got actually some time now that we can take a few questions and hopefully answer some things that are pressing. And if you don't catch us today, you can call us and get in touch with us after the presentation as well.
Yep.
Dave, do we have some questions, or do we want to have people put some more questions in?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and we'll have Chris and Clinton talk to them today if they can.
Fantastic.
We will be sending the slides afterwards, along with the key questions to ask. So just know you'll be getting that information as well.
On my second case study, I want to give a shout out to Meredith Rosenblatt and to Carolyn for their effort and what they did. These are projects that usually have a few people behind them that are just, it couldn't be done without them. It's not an easy project, given what to go through. And I've been fortunate enough. I said 2 case studies and I used a lot, but it is definitely a team effort when you do this at your firm. And I was blessed to have them with me.
So we do have one question here. It says, what is the status of integration of NLP into experience management?
Clinton, I'm going to leave that one to you.
NLP, help me with that.
Barbara, do you want to get natural language processing? Hey, I figured she meant, AI.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I haven't had that one.
Yeah, we've got some providers that are actually on today. I saw Barry Solomon and a few other folks. Happy to reach out to them. These are some of the leading folks that are doing some of the technology with experience management. And, AI just blew up overnight, it seems, but I'm sure that these companies have been working to get it, built into their products. So, feel free to reach out to them. And I'm also happy if anybody wants to reach out to me after, I'll make introductions to some of the primary providers and
And that's where I think a lot of this has changed over the years, because before it used to be, let's do the big universal search on the internet to go across document management systems and everything. And a lot of folks tried to say, when you save a document, add 5 pieces of information to it so it can be searchable. And we could find experience that way, and we could find deliverables that way. And it really became inefficient. And that's why I feel like we're having a pull back to the human element in this. Even though technology is powerful, technology is enabling the human element to be more efficient in judging what is featured. Because at the end of the day, what influences your audience is a skill set that a marketing and business development person has. And that's what we're trying to do, is put them in the best position to put the best work in front of the audience you're trying to influence and buy your services. So it's all about the people in the marketing and business development team. And that's why the technology is second.
Well said. Well said. Well, I think we'll stay for some additional questions, but also want to be respectful of time. So if anybody needs to go ahead and get a couple minutes of their lives back, you're welcome to. But do join us again. We're going to have at least two more sessions on this, and we'll be notifying you via email and LinkedIn about those sessions after LMA. Thanks everybody for coming today. Really appreciate it.
Outstanding. Thanks, friends and family.
Yeah. Hey, Clint, we got one more. We got a good question here.
What's that?
Do you have any best practices for developing your taxonomy? And I've got some around industry taxonomy. You have to think about, are you industry focused? And if you are, then this, listen here, this could be relevant. We've had clients who were trying to deal with industries, and again, they're putting them in a bunch of different ways. Make sure you involve everybody who's going to be dealing with the industry. So think about who's going to be inputting that information. Are you going to go SIC codes? Well, people don't seem to use SIC like they used to. Is it going to be NAICS? Well, those are more current, but there's a lot of them. There are thousands of them. Or is it going to be the taxonomy you use on your website, the 12, the 10 that really we care a lot about in our firm? But then you've got to make sure that the people that are entering them are entering them consistently. If you've got assistants putting that data in, we run into this in CRM land, right? If you're in the real estate team, everything seems to be real estate. Well, it's not really, that real estate could be for a manufacturing company. So you want to make sure you code it as manufacturing, and you want to make sure that whoever's doing the entry is trained on it, and whoever is getting the outputs is checking it and making sure that it's right. So get everybody involved in a meeting before you buy the technology to make sure you've got your processes straight.
I've actually found it is a wonderful process for the business development managers to be able to work with their practice groups and say, what should the services listed on the website do to best represent what you want to sell, what your experience is, and where some of the interests are for attorneys. It's been an incredibly healthy process. And not only should that happen, every year you should take out the listing of services that are on your website related to a practice and put it on the agenda for the practice group and say, here's the listing. None of y'all may have looked at it in the last 12 months. Is there anything that should be removed based upon, say, a lateral, an attorney who's left? Anything that should be added based upon a new interest of a professional in the practice group that has a growing interest in anything from crypto to microbrews? I've seen it all. And it is a healthy, wonderful discussion closer to business development than just data orientation when you walk them through revisiting on a regular basis the service listings on the website.
Great stuff, Clinton.
I can jump in on that one, you guys, because we do have a couple projects going with clients where this taxonomy is in play. And what we're finding is that you need to have a conversation based on some of the other systems that you have. So what's the taxonomy being used for new business intake? What's being used in your financial system? Because you want to make sure that this matches up as much as possible. And so that's some of the other things that need to be looked at. And as Clinton said, the website, how are we doing that? So, and Sally
hey,
is another one. Sally could be used. The question would be with Sally is that something that is also being used other places in the firm, or would it be something that you just be starting on with experience?
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Sally is the SALI, the open codes. They're doing industry coding now as well as matter coding. So if you're not familiar with that, go check that out. It's a public law firm initiative. It's great. And Dave, I wanted to say thank you for helping sort of herd the cats and put this idea and this show together. Great work on that. And Clinton, thank you so much for all of your insights. Brilliant as always. And for everybody who attended, thank you for joining us.
absolutely. Thank you
Hope to
so
see
much,
you at the
everybody.
cabanas.